Hi everyone! Welcome to Life Changing Moments with Annette. Today's guest is a very special guest. She's a good friend of mine. Her name is Pegi Robinson. Pegi is a retired counselor, social worker, and investigator, and is an NDE experiencer and author. Pegi has been featured on Dr. Oz.
TV, visit hottub.show.
We're back investigating the accounts of those who say they spoke to angels on the other side. Now,
nothing. I lost contact with my body, and my chin hit my chest, and suddenly I'm in a different place. It's dim, and it felt like a tight, narrow place, and it sounded like a rocket taken off, like psh, this loud sound of wind.
NDE radio, Artist First Radio, news media, IANDS Conference, IANDS groups, and many NDE podcasts. Pegi's memoir, The Wheel of a Wildflower, is a recommended reading in social work department and is endorsed by the Near-Death Experience Research Foundation and is described by a former monk as tragic yet divine. Pegi lives in Ohio. She married the love of her life, Jim Robinson. They have children and grandchildren. Let's welcome her, the amazing Pegi Robinson.
Welcome to my channel, Pegi.
Thank you.
Such an honor to have you here. I feel really blessed.
Oh, it's just me.
Because you could still remember my accent.
Yes, whenever I read your messages, I'm Pegi. I'm reading it in your voice. You're always so happy.
Oh, yes. But you too. You're always lively, so alive and so joyful, and that's why
I'm 60, so I have to take naps to stay joyful and light.
You're 60, but you don't look like 60. I told you already. You look fabulous for your age. So,
well, just remember me when you turn 60, naps, lots of naps.
Is it really true?
Yes, you get tired.
Oh, you get tired. I am already tired, and I'm just in my 40s.
Yeah, it happens sooner than you think. My boys are just starting their 40s, and they're like, I'm so tired. I said, it starts sooner than you think.
You had 2 near-death experiences, right? When you were small and during the pregnancy.
Yes. 5 and 25.
5 and 25. That's okay.
Yes. Well, when I was 5 years old, I was sitting in my bedroom on the floor playing Barbie dolls, and my mom come in, and I can just see it so clearly. She threw a dish towel over her shoulder, and she says, it's hot. She says, let's go swimming. You and John, my brother, says, you go on ahead, and me and Terry, my sister, she says, we'll be down after a bit, which was strange because the pond was down the road, walking distance from our house, but we always went as a family, 5 kids, mom and dad. We never just go ahead and go on down, I'll see you later. It's like, okay. So I was in my bathing suit, and then my brother got in his trunks, and we're running down the hill to go to the pond, and I can't catch up with him because he's 2 years older than me. And he wasn't the type brother, look out for baby sister. He's just thinking he's going to swim in deck with you. And so we get on the pond, and he goes clear down to the farther end of the pond, and he starts doing his laps, swimming laps from that end to the center and back. So I go do what I always did when mom and dad was with us. I stayed right at the edge because I couldn't swim. I could only dog paddle. And with a pond, there's drop off. So you move your feet around because my mom and dad say, be careful, watch out for drop offs because you get too far in and you hit a drop off, you'd be down in too deep and it'd be over your head. So I was being good girl. I was watching for my mom and sister. They weren't coming yet. And I saw a board floating in the water. And I thought, I could use that as a raft and do what my brother's doing. So I put my little belly over top the board, and I start going out to the center of the pond. And I said, hey, John, look at me. All of a sudden, he swims real fast out to me, grabs the board, and starts doing his laps on it. I'm middle of the pond, not how to swim. And I sink and I drown. And drowning is very painful. It's very scary. I was tumbling in this muddy water. I lost direction of what's up and down, sideways. And I was choking. I was screaming. And I thought of my mom and my sister because I looked up to them as my protectors. And they were at the house. And as I thought of them, suddenly I'm at the ceiling of the kitchen, looking down at them, watching them get stuff to bring down to the pond. And I didn't hear like earthy noise. I heard their thoughts. I felt their emotions. They were so calmly getting things ready in their own little thought, process. That's all they're thinking about is what to pick out to bring, like a little picnic down there. And then I was back in the water choking. So I guess I must have left my body for a moment and then like out of body and then come back. And then when I come back, then it was like my throat felt like it was going to burst. It hurt so bad. And I thought, I can't take this anymore. And then it was just like when you wake up from a nap and you're all calm, relaxed and comfy, it was like I had woke up because now it's just like, oh, everything's fine now. I thought my parents must have lied to me. They always said, don't go out too deep or you'll drown. And I thought I didn't drown because I'm fine. I could breathe. I wasn't struggling anymore. And this is my 5-year-old, self thinking, and why, after all these years, 55 years, it's always just as crisp and real. I mean, I can't tell you 5 minutes ago what I was thinking, but these memories are just like entombed in us or something like they happened in our soul, and maybe our soul it isn't like our brain where everything we just remember so crisp and clear, and it doesn't lose its strength or ability to just remember every detail. And so I woke up and I was thinking, well, they must have lied to me. And I just kind of drifted down lower in the pond, and the fish were bumping into me. And when they would, my body would just go off like it was just driftwood being hit by a wave or something. I thought, this is strange. And I'm still thinking I hadn't died. I'm still thinking my parents lied to me. We don't really drown. But I'm wondering why the fish aren't afraid of me. Afraid of me because we go fish with my dad, and us kids would sometimes stick our hands in there and try to grab the fish. And of course you can't grab them because they're scared to get away. So I'm thinking, how come they're just bumping into me? I mean, I could see their mouths open in their fins right in front of my face. And it was so cool to see them that close. And then this memory of the past in the living room showed up so clear, like a little television set. It's just like this, boom, this scenario I'm watching. And it's me when I was in the living room looking at the goldfish. And I was wondering why those goldfish that Mom had in a bowl in the living room, why they weren't afraid of this little treasure chest she had put in there. But they were afraid of me if I stuck my hand in. And something let me know those fish know something you don't, that I was dead. They're afraid of something alive, but they're not afraid of something dead. This was this way, God's way, I guess, of explaining to me through this scenario, you're dead. Like, well, then my next thought was, well, I don't want to be a dead girl bottom this pond. Because in my mind, I'm at the bottom of the pond, I'm dead. That means I'm always going to be at the bottom of the pond and dead. And I thought in the future, I could see like a future scenario play out, that I thought that every time my family would go by the pond in the car, going in and out from our house to the highway, they would say, well, there's where Peg is. She's in the pond, And I thought, that if I'm a dead girl in the bottom of this pond, people ain't going to want to swim here. They're going to be afraid of it. And this could be a fun pond for people, to swim in, play. I don't want to ruin it for I can remember every single thought. And then I thought, as soon as I started thinking, I don't want to be a dead girl bottom of this pond, then I started raising up, and I got to the top water edge of the pond. But it wasn't like, say, if you're in a pond or a pool and you're under or you're below. It was like I was outside the pond, like you looking at a fishbowl. You see the bottom and you see the top. I seen it from that angle. And I thought, well, my vision's different now. I didn't see things like this before. And I had no earthly hearing, because once I got my head above the water, it was like, which is my spirit, my body stayed below in the bottom. It was, I didn't hear like birds. I don't remember hearing anything of the day. It was just this inner thoughts guiding me. And so my thoughts were, well, it's like something told me I had a choice. You can stay below the water or you can go above. I thought, well, I'm bored below. I've seen the fish. Let's go above. And so I started to go above the pond, and I thought, I'm a little afraid of heights. And then I thought, well, that's stupid, because you're dead. I don't have a body. There's no me. I'm still just me, though, as much as ever. And so I thought, well, I'll go as high as the treetops, but I'm going to stop right there because I'm still getting used to this. I want to take it slow. I can remember every single thought. And so I got up there, and it was so cool because I thought, at the fair, I always wanted to go on a helicopter ride. Of course, those are expensive, and we couldn't afford it because I always wanted to see from up high. But here I got to see from up high. And so it was like, I got a free ticket, and I'm just looking around. I can see way down the train tracks. I can see clear across the highway over to the higher river. And this is really cool. And I looked down to where we always walked in at. And I thought, it's so strange. Before, I could only see as high as my height would let me, my eye height. And here I am up here, and it's just like an advantage. And everything was good. It wasn't like I'm sad I died. It was none of that. It was just like a kid get a new box of toys, and you're just checking everything out. I mean, it was that kind of excitement. And so I thought, well, since I can hover, I guess I can fly. I might as well. I must be a ghost kid. So I guess I can fly. And I heard a female voice. I didn't see her, but I heard it, and I heard it from a certain distance away. And it said, no, don't go yet. If they find you soon, you might go back. And I thought, go back? She don't know what she's talking about. That's not how death works. We don't go back. And I'm thinking, duh. And so I thought, okay, I'll be a good girl. But then you know what? I thought, do I have to be? Because I'm dead. I don't have bosses now. Who is she? Who is this voice? I don't know. And I'm starting to get excited because I thought, I don't have to go in at dark. I don't have to eat my vegetables. I don't have to worry about getting in trouble. It's just all these advantages. This is a good thing. And I really want to go fly. I want to try this out. So I flew towards Belpre. And it's just like you think about you want to go that way, you're there. And I walked into, it seemed to me like an abandoned house. And there was adults, older people sitting around this kitchen table. And when I walked in, they all turned and looked at me. And I said, where can I find kids to play with? And one man said, try the graveyards. So next thing I know, I'm back by the pond. But instead of flying, I start walking because I see two boys carrying fishing poles in a bucket, walking along the highway headed towards the opposite direction of Belpre, which is Marietta. And so I'm walking along beside them. Hey, what are you doing? Because I just want kids to play with. And the older one just doesn't hear me, ignores me. But the younger one, we're talking telepathic now. I'm like, what are you doing? He says, oh, we've been fishing. We got to hurry home. And so I guess we're like, he don't even realize this is this ghost talking to him. Who does he think he's talking to? I don't know. But then he just started ignoring me. And so I flew down the highway then. Flew over the highway. And I remember seeing, the houses that I drive through, after that as a kid, I could see, I would have these memories. I remember flying over the highway, I remember flying over that house. I remember almost running to this one billboard. And this billboard for years creeped me out. And I thought, why am I so creeped out about this billboard? And it took me a long time to remember later. I almost hit that billboard. I was flying right into it. And so this little town past the billboard is called West Side of Marietta. And that's where my grandparents lived. And so I dipped down into the West Side. I went down Lord Street, which is across the street from my Aunt Dorla. And my family used to live on the corner of that before we moved in the country. And there's this family on the corner on the left, had a lot of kids. They're real poor. And the kids are running around playing ball. So I stop and I'm running around that yard playing ball with these kids. And then I go on down, I'm in and out of houses. The next thing I know, and see, let's say different things happened at once. Like I swore for a long time. I remember like going to that house and seeing them old people in that kitchen. I remember talking to them boys that had the fishing pole. And I remember, running and playing with them kids. But I know I never left the center hovering over that pond. And I didn't understand that. And I guess we can be in more places at once. Or the angel didn't want me to leave. So like maybe part of me got to leave or something, but the essence of me had to stay there. I don't know, because it's like hard to tell you this happened and then this happened, in sequence, because there's also a part where I'm hovering over the pond and I look down and I was like, oh, my mom and sister's down here now. They're on a bed sheet. So they've been down there for a while and they're putting lotion on themselves or facing each other talking, and they don't realize I'm gone. I'm missing or anything. And I see my brother over there doing laps on my board. And I had anger when I saw my brother on my board. I had sadness when I see my mom and sister, because my sister, I could feel their conversation. I couldn't hear it as they're talking. It was so intimate and mature. And I was sad because I would never be old enough to talk to my mom like that. I wanted a relationship with my mom as an older child, older through life, where I could connect with her and talk to her like that. At 5 years old, I couldn't, like my sister. And so these strong emotions would come up, and then just like this wave be washed away. And then something said to me as I'm hovering over the pond. It let me know that, kind of like a download, or just like, oh, okay, I didn't know that. It let me know my family didn't love me. And I didn't know that. And then a voice said, not like away from me, like that lady that talked earlier says, don't go yet. It was like inside my head, and it said, children are sent here to be loved. That is why God sends them here. And I'm like, wait a minute. You just showed me my family don't love me, and then you tell me this? Well, that's not fair. So those things happen. But so at some point, while I'm off doing all these things, there's this gap of no memory, because I have no memory of seeing my family looking for me, any of that. Next thing I know, I am doing all that stuff. Next thing I know, my brother's carrying me over his shoulder, and I'm coughing up water down his back. And he's walking behind my mom and my sister up ahead. And because he don't like me throwing up water down his back. He says, Mom, can I put her down now? Because he's carrying my dead body. And my mom turns and looks and like sees I'm alive. And her and my sister going up to the house. My brother puts me down on the road, and they going up to the house. And I'm standing there, sick as a dog. I got this belly full of water with this knowledge and full memory of everything that just happened. My family doesn't love me. Why would I go up the hill to that house? And I looked there at the pond, and I'm thinking, I choose that. I was having fun. I want to do more of it. And I didn't know the word suicide, but somehow I felt it was my right. It was my life, and I'm going to do what I want. And I started to take a step towards to go back to the pond. And I thought, my family's going to think, is this a mystery? We already dug her out of that pond once. Why did she go back? And as soon as I took a step forward, I decided that's what I was going to do. The voice that I heard earlier says, don't go yet. If they find you soon, you might go back. She now appears. And it's a white light, the shape of a young female, thin, tall, and she's just hovering over the road. And I said, but they don't love me. And she said, you'll have a lot of love someday. And I said, when? And she said, when you have your own family. And I said, where will I find it? And I'm doing this, asking the questions just so she'll stay. I don't want her to go. And she pointed towards Belpre. And, so I went up to the house. So that was my drowning in 1966.
What do you think? What is the reason you can't remember of that lapse? You said there is a part that you cannot remember. Do you think there is a reason for that?
I don't know. I wish I knew. I thought about, I want to get hypnotized so I could see where was I? Because there's like that spot there. Where was I? Because I can remember being a girl before I drowned and a girl after I drowned. But then there's this, maybe I was off running, doing those things, in town and out of houses. And then I woke up, because I didn't see, like say, the rescue. I didn't see when Mom realized I wasn't there and asked my brother where I was. And she asked him to go back to where you seen her last and made him keep diving down until he found me. And then he pulled me up. I didn't see any of it. I did not find that out until after my second NDE. A couple months after that, I was sitting out in the wet grass with the night sky by myself, got relaxed, and I started praying. And all of a sudden, it's like this movie theater screen opened up in the sky, and I saw that drowning from front to back. And I thought, did I drown when I was little? So it had left my memory. But when it resurfaced, then I went to my mom and I said, did I drown when I was little? And she's, yeah, you did. And she didn't tell me, she didn't tell anybody, didn't talk about it, because I'm their sixth child. The first child died when he was 9 months old, and my dad's family blamed my mother for it. So now here is the youngest of the 5 she has left, who's just died. And she didn't want them to blame her that I had, even though, of course, I had come back too. She didn't let me know, and that almost happened. So, and then I went and asked my brother, who took my board. Do you remember that? Yeah, you got me in a lot of trouble that day. And my sister went to her house too. And I said, do you remember that? And she said, yeah, I do. But all I wanted to know then was, did I drown and how did you find me? Because I had no vision of that part.
And how long were you under the water? You had no time feeling?
No, I have no idea.
No.
Mm-mm. Quite a while as far as outside this time, what I was doing and experiencing. And, it had to have been quite a while because my mom and sister was nowhere in sight when I was drowning.
Yeah.
And my memory, when I left my body, saw them in the kitchen. They were still in the kitchen. So, they had to have finished up getting their stuff in the kitchen, walk down the road, put the sheet down and get comfortable and start putting the lotion and talking. So there's some, who knows, maybe at least 10 minutes.
Oh, that's a lot. Yeah. So you really died then.
Yeah. And then when my mom noticed I wasn't there, the time, I don't know how long it took, because she said, where's she at? Go back to where you saw her last. And said he kept diving down until he finally found me. So, how does someone, live that long, after they drown underwater, without oxygen? I don't know. Sometimes I wonder if I have some brain damage. I mean, I've had MRIs and things and never showed anything, but
that would show then,
Yeah, because I was just kind of like a slow learner and that kind of thing.
Tell me more about when you were a teenager. How was it at home, and when you knew already that you were not loved, or how did that feel for you? That must be very sad,
Well, right after the drowning, when I walked back up to the house, I knew I had to take care of myself now. I knew I didn't have a mother or anybody to take care of me. That's just how I felt after everything I just experienced and was told and knew. I had all this knowledge now. And so I just took off my bathing suit, got on my nightgown, crawled under the covers. Nobody come to check on me. I mean, there's no, thank God you're okay, nothing. And so I picked up a nursery rhyme, and it was the old woman lived in a shoe. And I got like this vision of my future, that someday I would either have an orphanage or I would love unloved children like me. I saw these beds lined up on the page of the storybook, and I thought, that's going to be my home. And that'll be my life. That's what I thought that's what the angel meant when she said you have a lot of love someday. I thought she meant I'd have a lot of kids. So from then on, I always wanted a lot of children. Aww. And so I just, so when I was, my parents divorced when I was 10. And my mom hooked up with an abusive alcoholic, and she would go, he was a truck driver, and she would go with him for days at a time. And me being the youngest, I'm left home alone because the other ones were teenagers and they were off with their friends. And my sister was, my mom gave her, I didn't know till a few years ago. I asked my sister, I said, why didn't you feed me? You know, mom left you to take care of me and you were never there. And she says, oh, mom gave me food stamps and money, but I spent it on me and my friends. I never saw her. I never saw any food. I was alone for days and days, starving.
Oh,
And
no.
so, and the hurt from the divorce too, being the youngest, and now suddenly your dad's across town,
Yeah.
and she has 2 teenage daughters, and that's his family. My mom's off with this guy who's a mean alcoholic when they're home.
Mhm.
And you know, my siblings all taken off. It wasn't the little compact family and little tiny house in the country anymore. And it was extremely hard on me. And so then we moved a lot, like once a year after that. And the other ones were grown up and leaving. They all moved one by one, oldest, youngest, because of the abuse from their stepfather. And so me being the youngest, I had the longest. So when I was 16, a friend of mine started seeing the bruises at school. And she said, she knew who was doing it. And she said, he's going to end up killing you. You need to get out of there. And so she said, my cousin will be down the road 5 o'clock and he's going to take you to your dad's, because the older kids, they ran away, went to my dad's. And my dad never liked me. I was like a mommy's girl, mommy's little baby. I was spoiled brat, you know, but I had no other choice. I knew he wouldn't want me. In fact, one time my sister called him because of the abuse, and she went and got in the car, and I got in the car, and he turned around and, what are you doing here?
Oh.
He says, you can spend the night and that's it. You know, he just didn't want anything to do with me. And because I was mom's, not his, he was kind of way active. And, you know, I look like her. I have her middle name. I mean, my mommy was everything. You know, I was that type of little girl. And my dad never liked me, so we weren't close. And so I thought, well, I have no choice. So anyway, this guy that was supposed to take me to my dad's, he ended up kidnapping me and raping me. And before he come to rape me, he indicated that's what was going to happen. And I was so scared. I was praying. I said, God, I wish I wasn't even on this earth, because nobody loves me. And now they're going to hate me because this guy was black in Southeast Ohio back in the 70s. I mean, that's like a death sentence for a girl. You're just like marked for life. And I knew they were going to think this was my intention of running off was with this guy. And there was tools on the wall. I mean, he already threatened to throw me in a lake earlier, and all this drama happened earlier that night. And I knew I couldn't fight, and I'm a fighter. And so I was just praying, I wish I wasn't even on this earth. And all of a sudden I'm in the night sky, and it's just black with the twinkling stars. And I got my body, I got my blue jeans, my like 80-pound little teenage body. I had long brown hair. It was blowing in the wind. And it was just like you're at the beach. It's a beautiful, warm, comforting wind. And I knew I was safe, and I didn't care why. And then I started getting a little scared. I was like, okay, wait a minute, I'm 16. I can't stay up here forever. And I kind of felt like, if you're ready to go back, you can go back. And so then I was back, and the rape was over. I had no experience of it. I had no memory of it. And I felt so grateful. I was completely shielded from any knowledge from the time he walked over and started climbing on that little cot I was hiding on to right when it was over. It's like I was spared. I wasn't here. I didn't understand how that happened. So weird things. It's like once an NDE or once a spiritual experience, once an out-of-body experience. It seems like part of that other side, heavenly realm, is still with you for a while, like an after effect. It kind of lingers, because I was put in the police put me in an open door for my protection. My stepdad come out and told the cops he was going to kill me. He didn't care. He says, I'm going to kill her as soon as I get to the house, you know, blah. And so, you know, but then I had to go back home, and I go back to school. I'm so embarrassed because I think everybody thinks that they know what happened. And I started having these voices come to me, and I seen this, like, not to stay out there. And I used to like smoke my lunch. I smoke pot. Somebody passed me a bottle of something, I drink. I didn't care. And something just said one day, do something good for your body instead of hurting your body. You go in and get a hot meal. As soon as I went in the cafeteria to get a hot meal, there's this boy in there who wasn't my type. And I was just like, something said to me, kind of like the angel says, no, don't yet, don't, if they find you soon, you might go back. It's like that kind of voice. And it said, don't approach. This is what goodness looks like. It says yours to go become a better person first, and someday you'll be together. And fast forward 20 years later, I was 16, 20 years later, I went through a 16-year marriage and divorce. And I just said a prayer, asked God, help me. I said, you're my father, arranged my marriage, and said, follow me, like, a leaf follows the wind. And so I just followed where I was led to that night and ran into my husband. It happened to be the exact same guy. And it was just like,
Wow.
there's a realm of knowledge that we can access at times a deep prayer of being very grateful in joy or in our deepest sorrow. And it's so guiding. You know how some people say they get a gut feeling, or something just kind of told me, don't go in there, don't trust that guy. And people really, really need to start listening to those and tap in, because that's the heavenly realm that is here to help all of us.
Wow. Going back to the rape, you were just like gone. Can that be that your soul decided to leave that body because the soul knew that's a bad experience and come back whenever it was finished? Can our soul do something like that, especially for people who had been to the transition to the other side and come back?
At the time, I thought, was that a wish come true? Did I have some kind of power? Because before this, when my stepdad would beat me, I would go inside myself, because I was a teenager and I had pride. I was too big for a man to be punching on the floor. I was a cool teenager. You didn't lay on the floor like a wimpy child, And so in my coolness, my desire to be cool, I would go inside myself and say, I don't feel anything. Come on, big man, give it all you got. I don't feel it. And so I was able to not feel by, this inner strength. But when that guy's about to rape me, I thought about that. I thought, okay, what's your options? Just go to that place where you don't feel. And then I thought, no, this is too big. That's not going to work with this, because I still remembered the beating. It was just, I couldn't feel it. I refused to feel it. And so I didn't want any memory of this. And so, but when I come back, I thought, was that a wish come true? Or do I have some kind of ability? Because, I was the ability to not feel pain. I didn't understand it. And so I think, when I started talking about this situation, which was decades later, because I didn't talk about that at all. Who wants to talk about that? People started telling me, like there was one nurse said, that's normal when kids are abused, for them to leave their body. Mm-hmm. And so I started looking into it a little bit and finding out, and then I watched I like Lifetime movies, the true stories of, somebody's, trapped in the basement for years, or the girl in the box, that kind of stuff. And I'm noticing they leave their bodies. They leave, and they are given this knowledge in those moments, like, don't make him mad. Whatever you do, don't say this, or don't go right now, or it'll say, go out that window right now. Those voices, I believe, are angels. They're direct voices from heaven. They're right from that knowledge and wisdom. And I see those movies, and I'm just like, that's exactly what happened to me with the rape. It was like, I was so scared, I left my body. But I think you want to call it God's angels. I think they take us. because I think if I would have had to experience that rape, I would have committed suicide. I had too much on my plate already with the abuse and with other things that had been going on. I really think I would have committed suicide. And I think God knew that would have been enough to put her over the edge. And I wouldn't be here talking to you today. And I felt it was a rescue. You know, I prayed to God. I wish I'd known this earth, and he let me just not even, I looked down at earth. I saw earth. And then people were saying earth is flat. They're full of it, because I was in space looking down and I saw earth just like a globe, like you would see in a science class, you know, the globes they have on the stand, look just like that. And it's just sitting there, floating, weightless, just like I was weightless. That's what I was consumed of. Look at that. It's weightless, just like I am. And I felt that earth was a soul, just like me. That's the only way it could be so weightless, is that it must be a soul, just like me, because we are both just as weightless, basking in the dark sky among the stars.
I've heard that too. Somebody told me that earth is a soul. And now you said that, so
Really?
Oh, so you were actually floating in the galaxy. Could you see the stars and everything?
I was in the black night sky amongst the stars, and it must have been the moon behind me, because there was a glow coming. And I told, because see, I daydream through school. I don't know nothing about science, geography, and so I asked my husband a while back, I said, you know that memory I have where I'm looking down at earth? I said, why do you suppose the earth glowed? Here, everything is just black, jet black around it. But the earth just glowed, blues and like greens and some whitish, it glowed like there was a flashlight right on it. And he explained to me how the science of that, why that is.
Yeah.
I couldn't have made that up, because I'm not smart enough to know any of that about science. But I can tell you what I saw.
You mentioned like you saw the future husband of yours, I think his name is Jim that time, and then somebody has told you like you have to be a good person first. So why she said you have to be a good person? Were you a bad person before?
I was angry. I just loved my family, and they just hated me. I just couldn't catch a break, and then she moved. I would just make friends and we'd move again. We moved every year, sometimes twice a school year. And by the time it was beginning of my junior year, she moved us out of the county. At first it was around places in the county, but this is the first time she moved us out of the county. And it felt like I entered the twilight zone when I entered this new county, which I still live here. They were like 20 years behind time. I was a teenager that thought she was cool. And this place was like Mayberry, it was what I needed, though. Hindsight is what I needed. And then when I started having children, I knew I wanted to raise my children here. This is a good, safe, wholesome place to raise children. And where I came from added to, there's more drugs, there's more bad kids, there's more stealing, there's more, of that stuff. And down here, if you do something wrong one time, they're never going to let you live it down. So you try to walk the line. It's a small community. And my kids stayed, and my 3 boys, they stayed in the school system, Claire, till they graduated. We lived, same place. And I've lived here 35 years now. We built a home out here. And it was a small school. They went with their cousins, and, they had the same friends going the way through. And they had a wonderful, safe childhood like I wanted, when I was in that family that lived in the country. I mean, it wasn't perfect. We were poor. We got our butts beat. My dad didn't like me. My brother was trying to touch me, and he molested my sister. We weren't perfect, but we were an intact family. And so I wanted my boys to have that family. I wanted them to continue to see their cousins. When your parents get divorced, you lose your cousins, you lose one-sided grandparents, you lose your aunt and uncles. You just lose everything.
Peggy, I have to say this. I'm really sorry for what you've been through, and
thank you.
no, really, and to see such a strong person in front of me now. You are truly an inspiration to us. So I have to say, I cannot even imagine that kind of life you've been through, and some people, they've been through hardships in life, but most of them, the family is there. Is there. But in your case, you were already told from that angel that they did not love you. So it must have been very painful.
Yeah, well, it's something you always try to do better, try to get someone to love you, And when I turned 18, I walked up on a hill one day and I just prayed to God, like, how am I going to make it? Because I see a lot of kids, their parents are going to help them. And I knew I knew I'd be kicked out at 18. I would have nothing. And so I was praying, and I got that feeling, when I was up in the night sky looking down at earth, I got that where my hair was blowing. I got that feeling of God's love. And I got this knowledge, like it's downloaded this knowledge and says, this is what you got to do. You got to start practice driving. You need a driver's license. You need a job. You need to start saving your money. You need to get to high school diploma. You need to, when you start working, save that money. Don't spend it. It's like all these steps. And I did everything I was told. And when I turned 18, I'd already had my credits for enough to graduate. All I had to do was come back, and I turned 18 in February, and they kicked me out because my mom was mad she wanted me to stay in school instead of working because she wouldn't get the welfare check if I wasn't in school. I said, she knew every day I was there, it was another day opportunity for my stepdad to kill me. Like I didn't know if I would live to 18. And so I got a job. They let me start working because I was 18, even though I didn't have the high school diploma yet. It was just a matter of going through ceremony in June. And I saved all my money. I didn't buy anything. And I took $300 and bought an old car. And when they kicked me out, then I went and bought that car, had the money to buy that car, and that was my home. And I was the happiest homeless teenager there ever was.
Oh, I never heard someone so happy homeless. So
it was great.
Oh, seeing you here speaking out about sharing your life story, your life-changing moments. I'm so proud of you.
When I turned 18, I promised myself that I said a prayer to God, and I promised God and myself that somehow, some way, I was not going to forget what happened to me, and I was going to help other kids because I knew more kids to be abused. It wasn't just me. This is going to continually happen. And I seen like this, like the little black and white, like it used to be of a camera, the little negatives. I was like seeing all these pictures of these kids. I didn't even know. It was like, all these kids will be abused. It's going to continue. It's going to continue. And I promised God somehow I was going to help abused kids. I would not forget. And so after I got married and had my boys, I became the youngest foster parent in our area. And I started taking in kids. And then I became the first therapeutic foster parent when they started that program. And I ended up having 60 kids in and out of foster kids. And I adopted my disabled sister's son. So that gave us 3 boys.
You mentioned, yes.
And then my husband and I, when we got together after my divorce, we got together and we continued doing, I taught him foster care, continued doing foster care. And we adopted a sibling group of 5, continued doing foster care. We got 4 girls, sibling group of 4 girls. They became available for adoption. We ended up adopting 9, like the first 2 years of our marriage.
Really, Peggy? So you have 9 adopted kids.
They're grown.
Yeah, but
they're all grown now. Everybody's gone.
So how many kids were there? I mean, like the 9 adopted, and how many kids you have biological?
I have my 3 boys, my 2 biological, and then the one we adopted is my nephew. Yes. And then my husband came with 2 daughters. And so we had those 5. And then we adopted 9.
Full house. Wow.
So I ripped up my foster certificate.
Oh.
We're done.
Yes. That's so nice what you're doing, Peggy. You're just born to help somehow. It's like you keep on helping. And these children needs foster parents, or really parents like you, huh?
Well, I had another near-death experience at 25, ectopic pregnancy. And that one I went through a tunnel and was in the white light, heaven, the whole thing. I was 25.
25, yes.
And I had the 3 little boys, my 2 boys and my sisters that we were in process of adopting. And they were like 4, 5, 6 years old. And we were in the process. It wasn't, the adoption wasn't final, permanent custody wasn't even final. We just had temporary custody of him. And I was pregnant for twins. And when I was 20, I had to get my tubes tied because my ex did not want more. And I was afraid he'd divorce me and take the kids. And I had no family support. He came from a big Catholic family. And he was adamant he wanted more kids. And so he insisted because my second one was going to be C-section like the first. And back then they said you can only have 2 C-sections. You can't have any more kids after that. And so I told my husband that you're getting them done. And I got a second opinion, but they said, no, you don't have to do that. Well, he didn't want more kids. He didn't want to marry me to begin with. He didn't marry me because I was pregnant. So, and I'm just trying to please him. And so I was so sad, but I did it. But then when I was 25, I found out I could have it reversed. So I had that surgery reversed. And then I get the call, you're pregnant and it's twins. So you could not believe how happy I was after being sterile and thought I could never conceive again. And so so after the phone call, a few days later, I started having pain. And then by the end of the week, the pain was so bad I couldn't walk. So I had my husband take me to the hospital. And on the way to the hospital, the pain got so bad that all of a sudden it like freed itself away from me. And I had the strangest feeling wherever the pain's going, that's where I'm going. I felt myself slipping away. And I couldn't tell my ex because I couldn't talk to him. But I didn't want to die in that car. So I just said a prayer to God, just let me get to the hospital if I'm going to die, because I don't want, freak him out along the highway. And so got to the hospital. I went to the counter and I told the nurse, I said, I think it's ectopic pregnancy, which all through the week I'd called my doctor and told him it's ectopic pregnancy. No, it's not. He said, I did an ultrasound, and both babies are in the uterus. Stop saying it's ectopic. I said, I think it's ectopic pregnancy. I said, I'm either going to throw up or pass out. So she puts me in a wheelchair, gives me a little blue bowl in case I get sick, leaves my husband there to sign papers. She starts to push me down the hall. My hands are on the armrest of the wheelchair. And I want to get that blue bowl so I can throw up. But I couldn't move a finger. I'd lost contact with my body. I couldn't tell my hands to move. And I thought, well, that's weird. And I thought, oh, I'm not going to throw up. I'm going to pass out. And my head dropped to my chest. All of a sudden, it's like I'm shot like a rocket through space. There's this loud wind speed, like a rocket being shot. Like you hear on TV when you watch the rockets go up in space. It was like, psh, and there's this vibration. It's like I was in that. And I was like shot so far up. And I thought, oh, my boys, I'm so sorry. I made a mistake by having that surgery. Now I died. And then after this long vibration noise and it's dim in there, all of a sudden everything comes complete stop. I look around. I can't see me, but I feel just like me. And there's white everywhere. Like that's all it is. It's just bright white light. And I'm just in it. Only I don't see me. And I'm thinking, am I going to be alone for eternity? Why am I alone? And then over to my right, I see a faint outline of like an arm, shoulder, head, and then another one, and another one. And I was like, I call it a panel of people. It was just standing there. And then I'm squinting, like if I have eyes, I'm squinting to see because it's so bright. And I see that one sitting up front and center of that panel. And I thought, sitting up front and center, that has to be God. So I thought I had a complaint department. And I started yelling at God, demanding that I have kids to raise. I cannot stay here. I cannot be here. I need to go back and raise my kids. And then this scene opens up. And if you remember the drowning, how that fishbowl scene opened up, it was just like that. The scene opened up, which I hadn't remembered at that time. And it was this, as if you just walked into a grocery store and you see this checkout lady at the counter, and this boy is throwing this fit, this little boy, because he's mad. He wants something. He wants it right now. And he's, throwing his fit. And the mom and the father standing there. And my focus is more on the kid and the mom. And she's just like, no, you can't have that. And he's, no. And that was God's way of letting me know, you're acting like a spoiled child. You need to calm down. And I guess as a young mother, this is what I needed to help me understand. Like the fishbowl scene as a child was what I needed to help me understand. And so I thought, okay, I'll try something else. And I heard God's voice telepathically in a male, firm but loving voice. It was my time. The answer was no. And I haven't heard anybody else say that. Everybody else says, I was told it wasn't my time yet, that I had to go back. I was told it was my time. The answer was no, you're not going back. And so here's me, and it's invisible me, but I see across from me a physical me, and I'm screaming out every abuse, telling God why I can't leave my boys down there, every abuse. And it's just like somebody took a record player and sped it up fast, so it'd be done over with real quick. And this scream just ended up like this white, I don't know, like into this air. Like, we don't do this in heaven. It's kind of the way I felt. Like it was done, over. Like it was, let me know, God understands. I didn't have to keep going on and on. It's out. He knows. And so I said, okay, I know from being Catholic, you're omniscient. And you can see in the future. If you look in the future and you see that my sons will be better off without me for whatever reason, I agree to stay. But if not, I beg, not demand, I beg to return, being good. And so then I see, and to the right, like here's the panel back here. And so be more closer to up front of the right. And I believe it's Jesus. There's a tall man. I just see him from behind, and I see brown, wavy, shoulder length hair. This thin man just standing there. And then I see a physical me join him, beside him. And we dip down just like that real quick. And then suddenly we're dipping down over top our trailer. We lived in a trailer at the time, and it was at night. And all of a sudden it was like there's no roof on the trailer. We're seeing right through it. And there's my 3 boys in their bedroom. They had bunk beds there. And it couldn't have been that far in the future because they look the same age. And they're discussing the fact that mom has died. And my youngest biological, Jeremy, says to his older brother, Matthew, he says, I don't care that you say mom has died. I want her back, and I want her back right now. And I felt his pain so bad that I retracted. And now I am a physical body. And I am still, I mean, that's right at the floor in front of God in this panel, which is still just the outline. But to God's left, because it's my right, I see this Jesus figure, just an outline though, but I know like instinctively who it is. And I'm sobbing at his feet. And I take responsibility. It's my fault. Because that I died and left my kids motherless. It's my fault that my twins died. All this is my fault, not God's fault. And so I think, well, okay, I'm here, like I'm stuck here. So, okay, I accept it because this is my fault. But I'll see my boys someday. And then I got to fear again, like as his mother, we think of everything to worry about. And it was a fear. What if my sons are so angry that their mom died at such a young age, that they hate God and they never go to heaven? And then I'm sobbing again and I'm bawling, and I see my hands come out in front of me, and I'm crying out to Jesus. And I say, who else will teach them about you? And then I'm back in the wheelchair. And there's a split second that I don't mention very often. There's a split second between there. Well, I'm at the fluorescent light in the hospital emergency room in the hallway, looking down, and I can see me bent clear over, and I can see the 2 nurses stand behind me. And we're not moving. There's just like wheelchairs sitting there. They're talking. And something's just like, get in, hurry, just go in. Like, I don't know, we'll just go in. So anyway, I'm in my body. When I come back, I'm thinking, what the hell was that? I was just in heaven accepting it. Now I'm back. And first come back my hearing. I hear the nurses talk. And then the feeling where my hands lost contact, feeling comes back with my hands. And then something tells me once you feel your feet, you're all the way back. So that was, and then they found out, the doctors prepped me for DNC. He says, Peggy, why you keep saying it's due a pregnancy? It's not, you're still intact. And There's nothing wrong. And I said, I'm not going home because I didn't want to go home. My son's find me. My husband went to work next day. So he said, well, if it makes you feel better, you live an hour away, you spend the night. So all night long, I kept passing out. And when I was on Dr. Oz, he said, every time you passed out, you died. And I thought I did, because every time I come back, I'd say, God, I know you can't keep doing this, but please just keep me alive till morning. Maybe my doctor will do an ultrasound then and see what's wrong. This is exactly what happened. He come in and found out I had internal bleeding filling my entire abdominal cavity, clear up my chest. It was the biggest tubal pregnancy they ever saw. It said one baby's in uterus and one was in the tube. It was stuck. It was half in the tube and half in the uterus. That's why the ultrasound made it look like they were both in the uterus. So that was very hard, because I lost my twins. And then a month later, I was pregnant again. And then I miscarried. And that's when I remember the drowning was right after the second miscarriage there. So,
can you tell me the reason why you had the miscarriage? There was like an incident, I thought, that led to that.
Well, it didn't cause the miscarriage, it just happened to be when I miscarried. We was at a family reunion and I heard a child crying. Nobody else heard it. And I walked out into a field and something just told me, go look in this tall grass. I thought, why do you think being in tall grass? And I looked down and there was this little toddler face down, just barely moving, kind of twitching a little. He was drowning in that ditch and I reached down and picked him up. When I did, that's when I realized that I felt myself miscarry. But I didn't get pregnant again for 7 years. And I mean, we were doing the temperature, stay on my head. We did. I wanted a baby so bad, even though I knew I could die. I knew it could, the doctor says, if you're one day late, I want you in here because we got to worry about this. But so when my ex and I were going through divorce, we ended up pregnant. He was so mad because he's thinking child support.
Oh.
And so, but I knew the signs and we got in there early and my doctor said, well, all I have is your word for it. If I do surgery and it's not tubal, we've killed this baby by the surgery. But if it is tubal, we have to do it. And I said, oh, I know, I want this baby. I've tried everything to get pregnant, but I knew the signs. I knew it was a tubal, and he did the surgery and it was a tubal. And so, so when I remarried, we went to fertility clinics and, what can we do? And every spring we had a miscarriage for 3 years. And the specialist said, you are having tubal pregnancies and they're dissolving in the tube naturally.
Oh.
So how is that?
Did you have again children after that? Or more children?
We tried IVF and none of them survived. So, but I think I have all these in heaven. We made 19 embryos for IVF. And then my husband and I, we had a miscarriage every year for 3 years, so you start counting up babies and then the twins and then, the 2 miscarriages with my ex. And so I think I got a lot of babies waiting on me.
Yes, many babies, but it's not yet your time. You stay a little bit with us.
Yes, I think eternity's a long time, so they can wait.
Yes. Oh, so your book, what is it about? Is it about your near-death experience or your life? And what's the name of the book for our viewers to know? I can't wait to buy it. Is it too?
It's called The Will of a Wildflower. The first half is part 1 and part 2. And the first part is my childhood up to 18 years old and getting married. It's a lot about child abuse. Then the second half is my adult life leading up to now. It's about the spiritual experiences. It's about the abuse, the spiritual and abuse, So it's a memoir. And the reason I call it The Will of a Wildflower, because after the drowning, my family went to Vito Lake, was right up the hill from where we lived, to go fishing. And I was bored with fish because of the drowning. And I felt led and I wandered off. And I went into I wanted to go over where it was real pretty, lake, but on the right, something was telling me to go there. You know, like, okay, I'm here. Why am I here? Because I still having these kind of like it's connection voices. And so it was just like dry, cracked mud, dried leaves and sticks. I'm like, ugh. And then I seen a flower growing out from underneath a rock. And I went over and sat down and just like, what are you doing here? How did you, there's nothing here. I'm just like, this is my friend. And I think it's a way the angel could continue to communicate with me, get my attention. Because I was then given this like download information as I'm like, look at this flower. And it was giving me these scenes open up. Like, so I saw this scene open up of we were real poor and mom always get these pixie short haircuts. And I saw myself, and then I seen these pretty girls in my Sunday school, the long hair and the bows and the pretty dresses, the fancy lace socks and shiny shoes,
Yes.
and then I saw my mom and her sisters and my grandma, and they were talking about what is your favorite flower? And they all were trying to impress each other with saying these expensive flowers, like you could only grow like for the flower shop or something. And this voice said, I didn't need everything those girls had. They need all that, I didn't need all that fancy stuff to survive. Mm-hmm. I was like this wildflower. I was going to have a very hard time growing up in a very rough environment, but I didn't need all that. But because of the hard road I was going to go through, I was going to have a strength inside of me those girls would never know. I would have the will of a wildflower. So that's why I named my book that. I feel that inner strength got me through. And it wasn't always my strength. It was these voices helping me. It was these situations, these spiritual things that I dismissed because I couldn't talk about. But this one morning, it just all come together to me. It's like this puzzle, just like everything just started to fit. And when it did, I just grabbed my laptop and I just started writing. And before I had tried writing down my bad experiences, and it was so gut wrenching. It's like, get that away from me. Who would want to read that crap? But then that morning, I'd had this like this spiritual vision because I have PTSD from my childhood. And I was thinking, I'm disabled from this. These memories won't stop, these horrible, horrible memories. And then all of a sudden, I see myself like I was up high and I see myself below and I was bent over in this creek and I was going along the creek picking up these little bits of light. And all of a sudden, it told me something. It was like, I have buried these spiritual light experiences under the rug with the abuse just the same. And in order for people to appreciate the spiritual experiences, you have to know the hardship I went through. So that's what got me through I have to write this bad stuff so people can appreciate the good, where I was saved and the miracles. And so maybe people would see the miracles in their own lives because we all have them, but we can push them away. We can think that's not true. That doesn't make sense. But the University of Kentucky recommends my book to their social work students interested in working in child welfare because he said it is the worst emotional maltreatment he's ever read about or heard about. I'm proud of that.
I'll write this,
Pardon me?
the link of your book in my description below, then people can see it too and find it on Amazon, huh?
Oh, yes.
Yes, Amazon. Oh, that's so nice. Thank you for writing this book. And I hope many will get this book and read this book and learn a lot of things from your story. This is really, it's a heartbreaking story, what you've been through, but your near-death experience were very nice.
I'm also hoping people will learn from the abuse that, like I was the kid that was standing there on the sidewalk when the other kids was told to come in to dinner. And I would ask, can I have something to eat? And their parents would say no. You need to go home. And don't come back till you have something to eat. Well, I come back, but I didn't have nothing to eat. And maybe people would just open their eyes to the signs of child abuse, child neglect, and to make somebody else part of your family. They may not be blood, but that neighbor kid that seems to have the raggy clothes or is awful skinny or seems like they're not, pay attention to those kids because they don't talk. They don't usually come out and say, I'm hungry, unless they are absolutely starving to death. People, they live their own lives. They like to have, their own family, make sure everybody's taken care of and wonderful. But I guarantee you there's a kid near everybody that is not telling what's happening at home, whether it's abuse, sexual abuse, and neglect.
There are many. And with your book, maybe people will start talking, and that's a very nice book. And I recommend to everyone who are watching this to get that book, because I'm going to get that book for sure. How did your experience change the people around you?
Well, the drowning made me a different kid. During the drowning, I got a strong sense of injustice when I realized my family didn't love me. And I said, well, that's not fair. You just told me, God sends children here to be loved. That's why he sends them here, and you told me my family don't love me. That's not fair. And that strong sense of injustice. Mm-hmm. And I think that's why God told me that, because some people hear my story and they say, God would never tell you something hurtful like that. Well, but it was the truth. To this day, my family hates me. They just always have. They're just that kind of people. And so that strong feeling of injustice I got while I was on the other side of the drowning stayed with me. So my disabled sister, when someone was hurting her, I was the one standing up for her. When she needed help, Mom said, go help her. I was the one that was patching everything. And then my mom had another child when I was 14. We'll take care of him. So people thought he belonged to me because he was always with me. And I just had this strong sense of injustice. Not that I never told a lie or was always a good girl, but I always had this right from wrong, like you're carrying this torch, all the time. Things got to be right, and things that are wrong, I can't accept them. Say kids are fighting in a playground, and I'm the one saying, "Stop! This isn't right," and everybody else is cheering, "Yay, yay, yay! Beat your head in!" And I was just, and my family didn't like me. I affected the people around me because it made them hate me even more. Because I was the tattletale, I was the voice of reason, I was the moral code, and they didn't want to hear it. They didn't want to hear that's not right. You shouldn't have done that. But then after my second NDE, I was changed as far as my husband's drinking, my ex-husband. It was no longer funny. He come from a big family of alcoholics, and it was no longer acceptable to me. I worried about how it would affect my boys. What if my boys become that too? And I just started taking things more seriously. And then I decided to go ahead and start doing my foster care. And I decided to go to college. I was out of high school 10 years. So I decided I was going to college and become a social worker. And when I was a social worker, they hated me too. So everywhere I went, I was hated.
Why is
I affected everybody around me, because if something ain't right, I'm going to tell you it's not right. You should not be doing that. That is not fair. That is not right. That hurts somebody. People don't want to hear that. They want everybody just go along and cover for each other and just keep doing what they're doing. And people say you're honest to a fault.
The final words about your whole experience and what you want to tell the people as a message,
My first thought, as soon as I was in the white light, was, it's real. It really is real. All the God and Jesus in heaven, even though I hadn't seen anything yet other than the bright white light, I was taken somewhere, and I was in this white light. I wasn't dead meat maggot in a casket. I was somewhere. And my first thought was, it's real. It's really real. I wish I could tell people it's real. And I thought, why doesn't God send people back? Why don't he take a handful of them and send them back so they know it's real? Because we have the Bible, but that's so long ago and it's getting so outdated and worn out with people. And if they knew this, if people could come back and tell that it's real, maybe they'd believe it.
That's why you're here now. God sent you back.
And why did I go through all that drama? You know, saying it is your time.
Yes. Oh.
Why didn't he just say, hey, yeah, that's a good idea. Go on back.
Yes.
But I had to confront some things. You know, I was blaming God. I was angry. I was, you know, and I was thinking things was God's fault. That was my fault. I wasn't taking the responsibility. I was 25. And I needed all that, I guess, to change me. So when I did come back, I wasn't the same as I was. I was going to be more vocal. Like maybe I found my voice when I was there by that crying out.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was pretty quiet. I was the type person that would just, you know, stand back in a corner at these big Catholic parties they had. I didn't talk to people. I was really, really shy. And like my junior year, I was mute for a while. And so I was just really quiet, but maybe I found my voice through that anger and talking to God.
Exactly. He gave you that voice and to speak out. And just like now, well, from the bottom of my heart, Peggy, thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here with us and sharing your beautiful, profound story, your life and the near-death experience. Wow, that is, I think Hollywood should contact you and make a film.
You too.
No, really, if anybody sees this video, if I was a director, I will for sure make a film out of it. No, because it's a sad story in a way, you know. So many abuse, you know, children's abuse. I cannot hear that. It tears my heart, Peggy. And knowing that you've been through that, you know, I always thought that my life was so bad. But hearing your life, I think my life was very good. And look at you now. You are so strong and stronger than ever. And your husband is so blessed to have you and your family. So proud of you.
Thank you. And thank you for the friendship. I really enjoy our conversations on Facebook.
Thank you so much, Peggy.